You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
And welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you those that are tuned in on our video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell. Stay updated with all of our video coverage here on the network, and as well, those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform. Thank you very much for doing that as well. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Armchair GM Pod, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network for all of our short reels and content, as well as at Sabres Semantics to stay up to date with all of our Sabres coverage specifically and our fan polls for our shows. Pleased to welcome on once again Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report, covering the Buffalo Sabres on the ground for us, giving us the update from down there at KeyBank Center. What's been going on with the team. We're going to get into headlines. We're going to talk about, obviously, what's going on with the Sabres right now, where they sit in the playoff standings. Yes, that is a real possibility this season. And a couple updates on Alex Lyon, Tage Thompson, Josh Doan's contract extension, and general thoughts as we get closer to the Olympic break and also the trade deadline. So with that said, Joe, appreciate you coming on today and staying warm, staying inside, staying away from the snow, just getting back in from the road trip that you went on as well. So appreciate you being able to join us today.
Yeah, it's good to be back on with you and talking with you. And a little road trip to Montreal was good. Didn't go to Long Island. Would have been fun to go down there again, but we gotta kind of save our bullets for some of these other road trips later in the year, and maybe playoff road trips. Holy smokes, man.
Jeez. I hope you're not going to get struck down for saying that, but
it's good. Well, listen, if we're worried about hexes and jinxes at this point right now, man, considering everything else this organization's been through the last 15 years, I don't know. It's a whole new world though. This team is built different. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So before we get into it, Joe, I guess, we've talked throughout the season, and even this just feels like a completely different team than maybe we were talking about in November and December. Obviously the GM change was a little bit of an uplifting change that needed to happen, bringing in Jarmo Kekalainen. But, from somebody that's around the team every day, practice, game days, everything like that, what has changed? Has it just been like a switch in mentality? Has it been a change in the way that they approach these games? Is it them finally, breaking through with Lindy's system and what he's trying to preach here and how they need to play? In your opinion, what's been the biggest, I guess, flip of the light switch from the first half to the second half here?
I think it's a combination of a few things. I think confidence is a big one, because you got a lot of guys that are playing really well and playing well for games in a row. It was easy for some guys to have a really good game and then come back next night, really bad game, and then it snowballs. Now it's guys are just playing very consistently well. It's not like you're playing, elite great hockey night in, night out, but for these guys, it's, you get an assist, or you make a big play that leads to a goal, or you make a big play that prevents a goal. It's taking care of each other and taking care of these little things and playing very together on everything. It's one of those things where, success is catchy and everybody's getting a taste of it. It's everybody's everybody's kind of pulling the rope here. And I think that's such a big deal for what they are as a team, because a lot of times in the past, you'd have a lot of guys that were doing their jobs and taking care of business and doing all that. And then you'd have some guys that were, maybe either not on the same page, or they're maybe kind of looking out for themselves, some business decisions, things like that, where, that can really throw the flow off of everything at once, especially when, you've got a mix of young guys and veterans and whatnot. And if you've got like some veterans or young guys that are just kind of like looking out for themselves, then it's like, come on, man, like, get it together here. We're trying to do this thing here. And it's like, no, maybe, that kind of thing just gets in the way, and it can cause problems amongst, guys in the room. The coaches don't like it, the whole 9 yards. So, but this team's different. This team is much different in that respect, in that they're all pulling for each other. They're all rooting for each other, and they're all trying to help each other out. It's very different from what we've seen over the years. And, even some of the teams that have been pretty good in the past, and, pretty good means could have been playoff teams had XYZ things not happened. They weren't as together as this group is. And this group is very much one that's united all together.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I know over this last so many years, we talk about, the teams of the past. And I know the alumni night was maybe something that, brought a little bit of juice in the building, having those guys back that were here for the success and things like that. And just having those guys in the building, reminiscing over those good times in Buffalo. Like, just when you look back on that being in the middle of this positive stretch of play, like with alumni night, because I kind of want to touch on that first in the headlines. Like, obviously we had the announcement that Thomas Vanek and Jason Pominville are going to be inducted into the Sabres Hall of Fame next year, which is a big deal. Makes me feel old growing up watching those guys back when I was, in my middle of my fandom there. But it, just general thoughts on that night, and maybe how that can translate positively to this group as they're still trying to find ways to become a winning team and become a team like that team that was so feared, all those years ago and had those great deep playoff runs.
Well, it was interesting timing to have, it's been, 20 years since that 05-06 team, obviously, since they made that run to the East Final, and probably could have been a Stanley Cup champion that year had, not for injuries and all kinds of chaos happening in the Eastern Final. And that was a team, the parallels with that team and this team are pretty easy to spot, because this Sabres team had not a lot of expectations going into the season. People were looking at this roster and saying, like, all right, well, they just traded one of their top scorers. How are they going to overcome that? Yeah, this team wasn't all that great last year. They've got issues, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, where it's like, yeah, probably going to be another year in the playoff drought. Like, this is how it goes. And then they've taken off, and now they're sitting third in the division. They're, wild card one, whatever it is right now. And that 05-06 team was picked to finish last in the NHL coming out of the lockout. And people look at the roster and go like, geez, they got nothing going on here. And, that's discounting the guys that were coming up from Rochester, which includes Jason Pominville, Thomas Vanek, all those guys that had great seasons during the lockout for them in Rochester. And this team didn't have that. Like, you weren't expecting to have, Consta Hellenis and, and Noah Ostlund and these guys stepping into key roles with this team and producing and playing very well. And, having guys like, having Doan having another solid season, having Owen Power becoming a defensive shutdown guy, Bo Byram doing a lot of the same thing and being an offensive contributor, Mattias Samuelsson having like an offensive breakout. You're not expecting any of that, and that's just the defense. Lots of things that nobody foresaw coming are happening with this crew, and they're having a massive amount of success. And so, like, those parallels with the 05-06 team are really interesting. And, you bring in like that cast of characters, and obviously, it's Ryan Miller, it's Vanek, it's Pominville, It's Tim Connolly. It's all those guys that were huge parts of those teams, and Jay McKee's, all of those guys. And you start, if you want to, you can start doing parallels between that group and this group and saying like, oh, okay, I see where this is going now, and I see how this is working. And a lot of the way this team attacks the game is really similar to how the 05-06 team does. And if this team's power play could click the way that the 05-06 team did, they'd be really nasty. But the fact that they're in a playoff spot and they're doing this kind of thing, and they're, if they were running away with things the way the 05-06 team did, then, this would be an insane buzz around the city. But even as it is, this team's got everybody's attention now, and they're playing really good hockey. They're playing really solid hockey. I got a text from a buddy of mine who was down Long Island, a big Islanders fan. He goes, you guys got a squad this year. And I'm like, I said 3 months ago, I would have told you there's no shot that was going to happen, but this team's come together, and they've got everything going in the right way.
Yeah. And they're getting the attention in the right way nationally, right? Like the lot of the Sabres are putting a lot of people on notice around the National Hockey League. It's just been a feel good story, and I'm not one of them, but maybe for Bills fans, this is a sort of a soft fall for them to be able to, like, the Bills season ends and the Sabres are playing well. So, for those fans in Buffalo that cheer for both teams, for once, I guess the Sabres are the shoulder to cry on for the Bills fans, which is crazy to think about. But maybe that makes it a little bit softer of a blow. Sorry to Bills fans out there. I know it was a tough loss, but anyways, we'll move on. Joe, quickly, Jason Zucker, 800 games, just reached that milestone. Guy that's been here with Buffalo for a few seasons now, signed a contract extension. Been a nice free agent addition as a veteran on this team. I know he's been in the lineup a little bit, but seems like he's fitting in nicely, and potted a couple of goals the other night, and just seems like he's fit in really nicely here, and carved himself out a really nice NHL career after bouncing around from Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Arizona. Seems like he's found a nice home here at the latter half of his career in Buffalo.
Yeah, he's become a real kind of glue guy, but also a guy, glue guys don't always contribute heavily to the success. Sometimes they're just guys that, help bring the room together off the ice, or, they lay some hits, do some stuff. Zucker's been, just a clutch. I think that's the right word for him, is that, times when the power play was really fighting it, he's the guy that gets a goal that kind of gets everybody like, oh, hey, all right, we're going now. Like, we got this happening. He's been so good there. And just the last couple of games now, getting goals early in periods. I mean, he scores, 40 seconds into the game in Montreal. That crowd was, every crowd in Montreal is crazy. It's just loud. They're into it. They, there's no setting like any in Montreal. And Zucker gets that goal in the first minute of the game, settles things right down. He gets a hit with Caden Gooley that, Caden Gooley hammed it up thinking, trying to draw a call. That gets the fans fired up again, and everybody's hating on Zucker, and everybody's trying to get a piece of him. Habs guys are trying to get a piece of him, and he's telling them to, take a hike, get lost, probably a little bit gruffer than that. But it was something that kind of set the tone for the game where, he scores, gets a hit that they were all kinds of upset about for a little bit. And then whatever, man, we're just going to keep playing the game. And Montreal just didn't get into the game at all. And Buffalo took advantage of that. Long Island, same deal, man. Like, kind of a slow first period. He gets that goal right off the bat in the second to get him going. And that turned things around. Like, that Islanders have been very good. They're not as boring as they were in previous seasons, but they're a team that relies heavily on their goaltending to shut things down. And they play that way to try to help the goalie out. But Zucker gets them on the board. That forces them to open things up. They get another goal late in the period. Then it's 2-0 going to the third. He gets another one to make it 3-0 right off the bat in the third. And you're like, okay, all right, cruise to victory. So you get a vet guy like that who's doing those kinds of things, and and as a guy in the room who provides leadership but also keeps everybody loose, it's the right combo. It's the right mix. And I tell you what, that should this team make the playoffs, a lot of credit goes to him for kind of helping keep those guys together and keeping them loose too.
And going from a veteran to a rookie, Konsta Helenius was a guy that made some noise here. Obviously, the first player in Sabres history with a 3-point game within his first 2 career NHL contests. So the Sabres did some digging for that one when they posted that graphic. But really nice to see for the Sabres first round pick from a couple seasons ago. I know he played well for Finland at the World Juniors this past January as well. So just comes in with a lot of confidence, is playing well in his first, full-time season here in North America. Like what have been your thoughts of Helenius coming up to Buffalo here?
I tell you what, watching him a bit last year in Rochester, that adjustment period from coming over from Finland and coming into the AHL as an 18-year-old, which cannot be discounted how difficult that is to do. 18 in the AHL it's rare to do that because 18-year-olds are not usually playing in the AHL. Like nobody from junior hockey. Like if he came from junior hockey, he's not playing in the AHL at 18. He's playing in junior hockey. Same for, college guys are playing college. So he comes over at 18 and took him a little bit to get going. But once he found his legs, took like 20, 30 games to really kind of get used to the flow, get used to the tempo and like what they're looking to do. And once he did that and he got his confidence and you watched him later on in the AHL playoffs, you're like, oh, they got a guy here. This guy's a player. I don't know that he's going to put up the big point totals. Like, I don't necessarily think he's going to be a huge point guy. He might, maybe that's how things go eventually, but he's a guy who's just a ferocious competitor and he's cocky as all get out. Like this guy's confidence is just absolutely through the roof no matter what. And he's a ruthless competitor. And he's basically what happens if you take Zach Benson, make him right-handed and have him come out of Finland, because they're wired the same kind of way in the way they play the game, because they attack the forecheck, they get under guys' skin, they're dogs around the net, they're just seeking out pucks and doing all that kind of stuff, and you drive opponents crazy by never stopping. They just keep going, keep doing their thing, and Helenius he's got a permanent smirk on his face, kind of like Benson, that just makes opponents just go, get out of my face with this stuff, man. You're driving me crazy. It's the kind of thing that leans very heavily into how Sabres fans love their players. They wanted players to play with that kind of cocky swagger and the ability to just drive everybody crazy. And I always said that if a guy like Brad Marchand played in Buffalo, he'd be a hero. Well, now they got 2 guys that could end up turning out that kind of way. Maybe they won't play the dirty stuff. They won't do any of that, that kind of stuff that makes, Marchand a kind of reviled guy over the years. But if they do everything else, boy, oh boy, you're going to see everybody wearing a number 6 jersey or a number 94 jersey here in the years to come, because that's the kind of way that they play the game. And what we saw in that Nashville game from Helenius, you saw everything on the offensive upside from him that you're like, okay, this is what this guy can do. The plays to help set up goals, and then the shot that he gets to beat Saros for his first goal. Holy smokes, man. And even that shot's kind of a troll shot, because it's going, head high, buzz past his ear, and, made Saros just kind of shrug and just go, holy smokes. Like, what was that? And then it's in the net. Just nasty stuff. Complimentary nasty, I should say, not nasty in a mean way, but this guy's a good player. You don't want to heap too much praise on somebody who's only 4 games into their career, NHL wise, but a lot of what we've seen from him in the AHL says like this guy, when he gets here, he might stay here for a while. Tough to say that now because there are injuries, there are guys that are out of the lineup, and maybe he has to go back at some point, but if he keeps playing like this, it's going to make it very hard to send him back.
Yeah, again, he's only 19 years old, so we'll level those expectations, but it's been a great first impression, I think, up at the National Hockey League level. Continuing on what he did in Rochester, this season, 30 points in the 34 games down there after his first year of pros last season. So, you talk about the playoffs and World Juniors and all those other experiences he's had. I think he's going to be a valuable player here in Buffalo. And yeah, those types of players are loved. I even look at like a guy like Steve Ott. He was only here for a couple years, and they were two of the worst years that the team has ever had, but he still was beloved for the way that he agitated and ran around out there. So I'm not saying Hellenius is, going to go to that level where he's going to lick somebody off a face-off or blow a kiss to Dion Phaneuf. But as you mentioned, that confident swagger, people love that here in Buffalo. So would definitely be good to see how he continues to develop here, but good start for him. And then lastly, Alex Lyon, the win streak, Joe, it's 9 in a row for him personally. It's been a great story. He was hurt there for a little bit, and the Sabres still have that great problem of having 3 solid goaltenders with Ellis. Luukkonen's played well, down the stretch here as well. And Lyon, obviously, since coming back. But, what has been your thought of how Alex Lyon and Luukkonen, I guess, as of late, have really stabilized the goaltending position and made it even harder on Jarmo Kekalainen on what decision he has to make here with one of them?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's I mean, the last 2 years we've seen different bouts of having 3 goaltenders, and sometimes the 3 goalies didn't really, all 3 weren't playing well, or 2 guys were playing poorly, and the one guy who was playing well was the guy who needed like a week between starts. And I think of Craig Anderson. I mean, hey man, listen, being north of 40, I get it. Like, you play one game, it's like, whew, I don't need that for a while. But like, he was kind of, you think back to when he was being kind of forced into playing more often, and that was detrimental to his game. But now you've got Lyon and Luukkonen playing very well. And, in Lyon's case, I mean, 9 straight wins is impressive. It's beyond impressive. And in Luukkonen's case, I mean, he's played extremely well. Maybe those third periods where, where it turns into, okay, let's just like ride this one home, doesn't really work out all that great. But it's the kind of play from both of them, and especially from Lyon, because, he gets signed this offseason and you're wondering, like, okay, veteran guy. All right, let's, part of the competition. Let's see how this whole thing works out. And he's just been very good always. Like, everywhere that he's popped through and everywhere he's played, he's been very good and very serviceable, for stretches. And, now that he's been a pretty steady NHL guy here for the last few years, especially, sorry, Sabres fans, when he helped Florida get to the playoffs a few years ago on the backs of the Sabres, you saw that kind of competitive streak in him where it's like, this guy's got some game here. Like, it's tough to find minutes for all the good goalies that can be around, but when, injuries popped up in Florida, he stepped right in and just ran with it. And, it was tough the last couple of years in Detroit where they had, a full crease, lots of guys buzzing around, and you're just trying to figure out what the heck to do. And, there was injuries and all that stuff last year, but here it's, I don't know, something to be said about having the right mix of the guys and the right mix of having, everybody going the same way about it. And Lyon's wired in a way as a player where he's like, listen, I'm just always trying to get better. I'm always trying to get better. I'm always just trying to be ready for when it's going to be my turn. And, he's like, listen, I love the 2 guys that I'm playing with here, but, we all want to start more, but, it's all about just being ready for the next start, whenever that comes. And, with the schedule being as tight as it is, with as many games and, as very little practice time as they've got available to them, the goalies all got to be ready, because they're gonna play, they're gonna get starts, and they gotta show that they're ready for it when it's their time. And I think that's the biggest part, is that, for as weird as it is, keeping 3 when you're playing 3-4 games a week might not be the worst thing, because you can give a guy a rest where, maybe he's playing one night and then he's got to back up the next night. And it's like, I gotta be mentally ready all the time. Like, that can wear you out too. And instead, in this case, if you got a guy starting one night, well, he can get the full night off the next night, because the third goalie can hop in and either start or they're backing up. And it's a nice relief. It's crazy as it sounds, having 3 hasn't been the worst thing possible right now. Earlier in the season, it was terrible because it just didn't work. His guys were off for like a week and a half. But now they've got the rotation. They've got all that stuff worked out now. And I think it's working out very well for everybody.
And when they're winning, it helps as
well. Winning helps a lot too. Yes.
When all of them continue to give them a chance night in and night out, and they come out with the W more nights than that, I guess you don't want to change what's working. But again, we'll see how long that goes. And, you're looking at Alex Lyon's, player card up there on the YouTube version on video. Like, you look at how much this guy has bounced around and scratched and clawed for everything that he's gotten at the NHL level, in the AHL. Like, you just look at a guy like that and you think, he's as you mentioned, he's wired differently, and he can, deal with certain situations. And to me, Brett, he's probably one of the guys that is, he can handle something like this that's going on this year, because he's kind of been, not necessarily looked at as the main guy ever within his career. So to me, this is probably nothing new for him.
Yeah. And, looking back, I mean, his numbers have been pretty steady throughout his career. You go all the way back. I mean, you go back to his time in college at Yale. I mean, he was Yale's #1 guy. I mean, the numbers he put up in college, yeah, you see why. I mean, almost a .940 save percentage, starting 30 games a year for the Bulldogs. Like, that's some damn good work right there. But even, he gets into the AHL and you're posting, 910, 912 save percentages year after year. And I know those don't always like reach out and grab you by the face, because you're thinking of the elite guys that put up, 925, 935, things like that. That's still really good. I mean, you're talking about, you're playing pros. If you're playing the AHL, you're playing in the second best pro league in the world. And then the NHL, anytime you're in the NHL, that you're the top of the ladder. And his numbers in the NHL, for a while, he was kind of, because you're up and down, you're battling, you're going from the AHL to the NHL all the time. You're getting called into pinch hit. But now that he's been a steady NHL guy, the numbers have stayed pretty locked in, pretty regular numbers as far as it goes. And, it says a lot for a guy to stay on his game like that and to stay ready always. And there's the maturity factor for him too, because he's in it, he's north of 30, and goalies, listen, I know there's an age drop-off worry for skaters and defensemen once they get past 30. It doesn't exist for goalies necessarily, because those guys are smarter and they handle the business better, because goaltending is a little bit more of a science than it is to play forward or defense, and a lot of it is very personal, kind of, how you manage yourself and how you manage the game and how you read things. And, a lot of how the position's played now is very mechanical, but Lyon's gotten to a place in his career now where he's just got it locked in. And, the way that he's able to keep himself ready and focused and motivated just works, because it's kept him in the NHL now for for basically 3 straight years. And he's earned that place too.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it goes down the stretch here. But, Lyon seemed like he was the guy that everybody wanted to say, oh, he's the easy guy to move out. But, he makes this decision even harder on Jarmo Kekalainen with these 3 goalies right now. And again, a nine straight wins for Alex Lyon. It's been a great stretch and a great feel-good story for him, seeing how much he's bounced around in his NHL career and found a nice spot here in Buffalo. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the Josh Doan contract extension and how that might affect some more Sabres contracts coming up this offseason and beyond. So stay right back on Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Are you an employer looking to hire? Let the Niagara Employment Help Center save you valuable time and money by making your hiring process easier. Their services include free job postings in-house and on our website, fill job vacancies quickly and efficiently, access to a bank of potential employees, reduce employment costs, and financial incentives may be available to offset the cost of new hire training. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
Whether you just brought home a new furry member of the family or would like help finding something new for your picky eater, maybe you've done your research and want to upgrade your pet's nutrition from an entry-level food, the staff at any of the global pet food stores in the Niagara region would love to help you out. Let them show you why our lesser-known premium brands are so much better than highly advertised big corporate brands. The value from the brands we carry is not only visible in the health and vitality in your pet, but also because you won't need to feed as much as with the other brands. cans. Better nutrition from a longer lasting bag. We hope to see you at one of the following locations across Niagara: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, as well as 400 Scott Street, St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they connect with our customers, simplifying the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Hey, hey, here we go. It's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go. The boys in blue, white, and gold. Hey, hey, here we go. Make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all. Let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
And welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in on our video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell, comment. What are your thoughts on the episode so far and anything that you want to mention from today's show? We always want to hear your guys' comments and engagement out there as well. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in on your favorite on-demand audio podcast platform. And make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network for all of our short reels and content. Brandon Caputo back with Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report, continuing to discuss the most recent stretch of games for the Sabres. A lot to discuss here in segment 2. We're going to start things off, Joe, with the contract extension for Josh Doan. This was a big piece of news earlier this week. Jarmo Kekalainen wanted to get this done. I believe he said in his press conferences, why wait? They wanted to get this guy locked up. Comes over in the big trade with JJ Peterka in the offseason, along with Michael Kesselring, who seemed to be the main part of that trade. But Josh Doan, has been a guy that's been a pleasant surprise for the Sabres. Has been a real good fit, real good energy type player. Moved up and down the lineup, has the most takeaways in the National Hockey League. Has played well in the power play. Has played well as a two-way player. 7-year contract extension worth $48.65 million, which works out to $6.95 million per season. Joe, what are your thoughts on the extension itself and what you've liked from Doan in his first season in Buffalo?
What I've liked, what's not to like. I mean, it's everything he's done has been absolutely spot on. It's his all-round play. Just being on the puck always. Great on the back check too. It's weird to note guys being great on the back check, but he's been so good at it and picking guys' pockets to create opportunities. to create goals. I mean, we've seen that happen a few times here just in recent weeks where that's happened. But he's around the net. He plays fast. He plays hard. You know, you could not have asked for a better player to get out of a trade, and maybe a surprise player in a trade. Looking back, you know, because they got him from Utah in the Paterka deal. You know, they got him and Michael Kesselring in that deal, and Kesselring was the big focus because he's the right-handed defenseman, and Doan hadn't played a lot in the NHL, so he was kind of an unknown factor. But you know, it was one of those, like, those who know ball know what's going on. And, you know, a lot of the discussion after that trade was like, we don't have a lot of people that know ball around here because he's getting referred to as like a throw-in, just a guy to even out the trade. And I'm like, guys, that trade was never getting made unless Doan was in the package, was the whole thing. And that's what caused that trade to almost not even happen, because Utah didn't want to give him up. So they knew what they had. Buffalo knew what they were going after. Kevin Adams knew that this was a guy they had to get in that trade, and you know, full marks there where they're due, because Doan's a player, and we've seen that more than enough this season. He's been fantastic, and getting him locked in for 7 years at under $7 million a year is really good, because the cap, of course, is going up the next few years, so that's already going to look like a steal going into the future. And, you know, it's kind of funny how, you know, the extension that Tage Thompson signed a few years ago has worked as kind of like an artificial bar for the forwards when it came to getting re-signed. You know, Dylan Cousins signed his extension in Buffalo, came in just under what Tage Thompson was earmarked at. And Doan has done the same thing here. And, you know, to me, it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of like a bit, you know who the big dog is in the room when that's the case, you know, because if you're a young guy, you're coming out of your entry level deal, and, you know, if you're saying like, well, I want to make more than Tage, it's like, are you scoring 50 goals a year now? Like, is that where your bar is at? It's like, no, but let's be real here. The cost of business has gone up, but this is a great deal. And I know folks are concerned about other deals maybe in the future that are to get worked out, but for this right now, you cannot ask for a better deal. And, you know, listen, if he's going to play like this for the next 7 years, you sign up, you take that, and you run away screaming happy about it.
Yeah, you love how a guy like Josh Doan is wired, right? Like, obviously with his dad's pedigree in the National Hockey League and the way that he played, I'm not, you know, you can't just be Shane Doan 2.0. You got to be Josh Doan, and for him, 35 points in 51 games, a second rounder by then Arizona back in 2021. And you mentioned like Kevin Adams, when he was the general manager, you know, he said that Josh Doan needed to be part of this trade or it wasn't happening with Utah. So, you know, I think people were expecting, you know, good things from Josh Doan, but has been a very pleasant surprise as how fast he's, you know, really integrated himself in this lineup and as one of those, you know, really big glue guys within that team, right? Like, only as a 23-year-old player, he's playing like a veteran right now with the way that he plays the game, as you mentioned. Like, it's been so nice to see, especially because Kesselring's been hurt, right? Like, Kesselring's only played in, I believe, 18 games. So it's been nice to see that trade work out on the other side of it as well, because we know, you know, what Paterka is able to do. But with the numbers Josh Doan has put up, it's almost made it seem like, wow, this worked out to be a really good trade for Buffalo. And especially if Kesselring, you know, really starts to pick things up, it'll make it even more, you know, hopefully lopsided in Buffalo's favor. But yeah, I don't think you could ask for anything more from a guy like Josh Doan and what he's brung. And I think the fan base is really taken to a guy like that as well, which we'll get into our first poll today. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics. And it was a 100% for thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres re-signing Josh Doan to a 7-year, $6.95 AAV contract. 100% said love it, perfect deal. The other options, I don't even have to read them off because they were 0%. So it just seems like that right there goes to show what a guy like Josh Doan, you know, means to the Sabres team, means to their turnaround, and beloved by the Sabres fans for the way that he plays.
Yeah, and something that both Jarmo and some of, you know, all of Josh's teammates who we spoke to was the character of him, and that was something we heard about in talking with Kesselring, you know, right after the trade was made over the summer, was what a guy he is in the room. And, guys just love just love him. And he's, got an infectious personality and, and you hear about that and you're like, okay, that's cool. But when you see it in action, we saw it in action almost immediately, first day that, we're allowed to be in the room during training camp or preseason, whatever. And you just see the way he naturally is, he's an outgoing, he's a chatty dude, always upbeat, always positive, always picking guys up and keeping everybody loose. And you get guys like that into a locker room and it can't be understated how big a deal that is. Like to have somebody that has that kind of personality and it just rubs off on everybody. And to have that kind of influence in a room, especially being a new guy, nobody really knows him. Tage gets to know him at World Championships. Kesselring knows him from playing in Utah. Maybe some of these other, guys knew him from growing up or whatever, playing against him in college. Maybe, I don't know, but everybody that's, that gets to know him right away immediately says like, wow, this guy, he's a guy's guy. And like, wow, how do you not like being around him? And it's very similar. It's, Yarmo said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree when it comes, it comes to Shane Doan, because Shane Doan was very much the same kind of guy. I mean, Shane had to be the ambassador in Arizona for so many years, while that team was going through all kinds of stuff off the ice. And Shane had to be the guy that, kind of was the spokesman for everybody in the room, but also like everybody in the room gravitated to him too. And Josh has been the exact same thing. And I mean, to have a guy be 23 years old and everybody just loves to be around him is a really cool thing. I think back to when Utah came to town, pretty early this season. I think it was early November. And, Sabres had I think it was like an optional morning skate that day. And I don't remember. I don't think Doan was skating or maybe he was, and he was just on the ice late. Rink rat stuff, normal kind of thing. Guys get on the ice, they just want to stay out there. But there was a bunch of guys from Utah, and they're getting stretched and getting warm, get ready to get out for their morning skate afterwards. And guys are just like kind of hunting the hallway. They're like, hey, where's Doan? Where's Josh? Like, I gotta see him. All these guys in the hallway, just like, they just want to see him. They want to talk to him, catch up with him again. And this is before morning skate. Usually after games and everything, guys are always meeting and chatting or whatever. But this was before even guys are coming out, getting ready to go on the ice, and Sabres are coming off the ice. Everybody wants to talk to him and see him. I've never seen anything like that before, where guys are just like kind of just walking around like, hey, where's he at? I got to see him. I've never seen that before. And that's where the light bulb went off for me. I'm like, okay, Sabres just basically acquired a mayor. They acquired a beloved mayor to be on the team, and it's totally showing through. And you feel that kind of thing in the Sabres room, where it lifts everybody up, like having that kind of presence there. And it's really impressive. It's just makes you really appreciate guys that are wired like him in the league, and to be around a guy like that all the time. And he's just always loose. He's always easy going. It's a really nice thing to see after so many years of having guys that, I'm not here to tell tales outside of school, but like having a lot of guys that aren't wired that way around, and it makes it a little tougher, makes everybody a little tighter, a little bit, maybe a little bit more on edge. And that edge is not there with guys like him.
No, it's an infectious mindset and attitude for a team that, definitely has needed it, going through, what they've gone through over the last, 14 years or whatever. It's interesting to have a guy like that at such a young age be so beloved in the league already. It's, maybe future captain material, a guy like Josh Doan, but he's definitely made a great impression on and off the ice. You can see the Jarmo Kekalainen a quote up on the YouTube version. I'll read it off real quick. Josh is a player that impacts the team both on and off the ice. He works hard, is competitive and skilled, and his game is going to continue to develop. We believe he will be a core piece of this team moving forward, and I'm excited to have him as a Buffalo Sabre long term. So, Jarmo Kekalainen has only been the general manager for a short time. I know he's been here, as a senior advisor for this season, but just makes a great impression to not only players, fans, but the management team as well. So it looks like it's well deserved and well received by everybody for a guy like Josh Doan.
Yeah, and it's it's the kind of thing where I think it's the first contract in a while where I think a lot of fans just didn't even blink at the money. They're just like, yep, Cool. Easy. Like, it seems like a bargain. Done. Like, you don't even think about it. You don't worry about it in the immediacy of that getting signed. Obviously there are some folks that are concerned about some other players that we're probably going to be talking about here shortly getting re-signed. But I mean, for what the cost is and the length of the contract, I think everybody is extremely excited to get that done.
Going into that, Joe, we had a report earlier this week from Elliot Friedman that he stated when Kevin Adams was there as the general manager in Buffalo, one of the things he talked about was if we gave Alex Tuch what he wants, how are we going to be able to get Josh Doan and Zach Benson done? I do think that question is still very much part of Buffalo's discussion. That was from a show that he did back on January 22nd. So, when you talk about the Doan extension, we know Alex Tuch's contract is still up in the air right now, unrestricted free agent, and Zach Benson obviously is gonna, want to get re-signed as well. So, does this at all concern you? Do you think that this Doan contract, not being one that's going to break the bank for Buffalo, but again, when you start to creep up to the salary cap, you start to wonder. But what are your general thoughts here on how this might affect the Tucker, the Tuch contract, and then the Benson extension as well?
Well, I think this is it's an interesting one because I think a lot of folks are worried about this, and I think it's probably pretty normal to be worried. And you want to try to get everything done, and it's I get it. I totally get it. It's something where you want everything to just get squared away and be all right. And, everything will come out the way you want it to come out. And I think when you see what happens with contract negotiations that are very much not in the media, like you're seeing with Tuch, like none of this stuff is being negotiated through reporters or insiders or any of that stuff. Like, Alex stays out of the loop. He lets the Bartletts, his agents, the Bartletts handle everything. The Bartletts do not tell us anything about what's going on. Jarmo was very coy about, answering, everything about Alex, the other day in Montreal about it. So, it's something where he's like, hey, maybe we'll see something. This will play things forward for the future. I don't know. Maybe this is, maybe this will work out. To me, people want to get, it's kind of interesting how this works out, but Sabres fans have gotten to the point where they want this essentially to work out as a let's run it back with this group already next year kind of setup, which is really interesting. But, I see that, you look, the cap's going up to, what is it next year? 104 million. And the Sabres already have 90 million committed the next season, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to see that number and be like, wow, okay, they really are spending money. But that kind of about, it's about 14 million in cap space. So you're thinking, all right, well, what do you get? What's a Benson extension look like? How does that work out? How do you work things out with some of the other UFA guys that maybe you want to retain, and the juggling that goes on with all this stuff. Peyton Krebs, he's an RFA. How do you get that taken care of? There's so much time. There's so much time to worry about any RFA guys or it's even some of the UFA guys you want to retain, the Malensteins, the, Josh Dunns, the, maybe, Bryson's, Metza, the guys like that, where you're like, okay, let's figure out a way to do it. Getting Tuch done is difficult, and it's difficult for a bunch of reasons because, it's his age. He's 30. Do you want to give him 7 years? Probably not. Does Alex want 7 years? Probably. Almost certainly. Like, pay me till the end of, till I'm close to wrap up my career there. Great. But it's tough because if you shorten the years, the money goes up. That's the hard part. And if you, if you're expecting Alex to take a hometown discount, that ain't happening, because the contract that is ending right now is the extension he got while he was in Vegas. And that deal was one where he looked at it, spoke to him last year about, what it was like to negotiate that. And that was one where Vegas was like, hey, we got a deal. We got an offer for you. What do you think? And he's like, wow, great. Let's do it. Youth, you get a big offer tossed your way and you're like, wow, this looks great. Let's get it done. And, you get a couple of years into it, then suddenly you're a 35 goal scorer. And you're like, oh no, I'm massively underpaid now. Where did I go wrong? And it's like, well, you didn't go wrong. It's just, maybe it was the length of that extension that wasn't exactly the right idea at the time. So, now he's at a point where he can demand big money. Like he can demand, 10, 11, $12 million a year if he wants to. Like you can do that and know that the cap's going up and like there's a little bit more freedom to do that. And, Buffalo's in a spot now where it's like, okay, well, we want to keep you, but that's a tough amount to judiciate there. So, it's a hard spot, especially because, if you end up giving Alex what he wants, then you have to kind of play some hardball with Benson and Krebs and those guys. And maybe you got to say goodbye to a Malenstein or Josh Dunn or somebody like that, other grit glue guys that you've got in the lineup that take care of little things. And I know fans will talk a big game and be like, fine, let Krebs go. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, listen, you can do that, but then suddenly you've got zero depth and you don't have the kind of balance in your lineup that you've got right now. So it's a tough spot to be in. But I think with Jarmo running the show, I think folks want to buckle up for that because I think Jarmo's the kind of guy that if they don't get a deal done before the deadline, Jarmo will say like, okay, we'll work on it at the end of the season, which gets a lot scarier. But if it means going to the playoffs and getting all that stuff done, so be it. You worry about it later because Jarmo's done that before in Columbus. He had Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky as future UFAs, and he's like, we got a shot at the playoffs. We got a shot. We could go deep with guys like this. We're going for it. And like that took massive courage on his part to do it, especially in Columbus. And you know what? Gave him kudos then for doing it, for being bold. And, hey, the guys didn't stay. Okay, fine. But I think in this case, I don't think you can. You could move Tuck and get a big deal, and get a big package for it, like whatever. But I think it works super negative against you if you do that ahead of the deadline and it costs you a playoff spot or something like that. Because whatever you get in a return for Tuck, it's going to be futures, right? Like you're not getting another veteran player probably.
So you kind of use it as a rental.
Yeah. So you view it as like kind of like your trade deadline rental, and then you get to the off season and then figure out what you're going to do from there. But a lot of folks are getting preemptively worried about how they're going to manage this, that, and the other thing. I'd say park that. Enjoy the ride right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sabres fans would take it at this point with how long this drought has been, that to keep Alex Tuck around to make sure that they make it into the playoffs rather than get more picks and prospects, which the Sabres have had, plenty of over these many years. And again, I know you have to look at the long-term implications as well as an organization, but for Alex Tuck, I think it means a lot to be able to keep him around for this stretch here. And as we kind of transition here, Joe, to sort of the outlook right now, where they are within the conference, within the division. Like you look at the standings right now, they're tied with Montreal, technically ahead of Montreal after they lost in Boston last night. And it's interesting right now. You're behind Detroit and Tampa. I know the Atlantic as a whole division has played much better as of late, and a lot of those teams have played very well. So the Sabres really haven't, being able to, really pull away in that sense because so many other teams in the division have been playing better. We know Florida's getting healthier. We know Toronto has played a little bit better. And those teams around them continue to play really well. Montreal, Tampa Bay, Detroit to me is like the surprise team. I did not think that they were going to be a top 3 team in the Atlantic at all. They've gotten really good goaltending from John Gibson as of late. So I guess as you look at that, sort of what is your outlook and optimism here? And I'll pull up our last poll here that kind of reflects the fans' thought of it, of very optimistic at 51.9%, cautiously optimistic at 48.1% of what are your thoughts on the team being tied for third in the Atlantic and in a playoff spot through 51 games?
It's it does make me pine for the old 1 through 8 playoff rankings, because they'd be feeling a lot better about themselves right now if so, because that would be a pretty weighty battle in the middle of those standings amongst everybody else, as opposed to sweating out, okay, you getting a third or you get to be a wild card, like all that stuff. And we kind of sweep out a lot of the weaker Metropolitan Division teams too, kind of move them down the ladder a little bit and just make it an all, everybody in the Atlantic into the pool going for it. But it's, a lot of this is I'm still kind of digesting a lot of this myself, honestly, because this, going on this run since, like what, American Thanksgiving, basically, they've been just so hot and playing so well since then. You're kind of scarred by the past and waiting for like when the rug's going to get pulled out, like when something dire is going to happen that's going to kind of trip things up. And I'm like, I don't see that happening with this group right now. I don't see a massive fall coming. I don't see any of that going on, because I think this group together is differently. They're operating in a different way where it's more mature, more grown up, and more kind of set in how they do things, as opposed to scatterbrain running around, game to game, it looks like a different team playing it. And you're just kind of like, all right, well, which version of the Sabres is showing up tonight? You hope the good one's out there. And then, when it's the bad one, you're like, oh boy, you can pick up on it 5 minutes into the game. That doesn't happen now. Like, that is not how this group operates at all. And, they've been getting, clutch momentary goal scoring. They've been getting very solid play late in games. I know it can be a bit of a nail biter in some of those instances where they're just, kind of content to block shots and clear shot lanes for the goalie to make saves. I get it. It's a little stressful, but it's helping Peyton Krebs score a lot of empty net goals. So that's kind of cool too. But this is just a team that is just figuring out how to play that's figured out how to play the right way. They're not figuring out, they've figured it out now, to play the game the right way and to do things that help them lean into their strengths, game to game, in the games that they've lost, I would argue that the worst game that they've played during this past, 10 games or so is the game against Florida. And even still, that ended up being a 1-goal game, but that was a game that they probably didn't deserve to win that one at all. But you get the loss to Minnesota, tough one, OT, okay, great. And then Carolina, I mean, that was one of the most entertaining games I think I've watched in a couple of months, just overall, just in the pace of the play and how both teams were going after each other. So, this is a wildly different type of Sabres that we're watching this year, as opposed to, I don't know, anything the last 15 to 20 years. This is a real team that's got a real good focus, and they're playing some outstanding hockey. I mean, this is a team that's always had the pretty solid 5-on-5 play, but now they're owning it 5-on-5. So this is I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And it's a different sort of like, media mentality of being like, I got to be ready for some, because for myself, for Bleacher Report is always like, well, I got to gear up for going to Toronto for playoffs. All right, cool. Maybe somewhere else. I don't know. Now I'm just kind of like, all right, well, there's going to be games here. Where am I going? Where am I going to go for games 1 and 2 or games 3 and 4? Now you're thinking like, all right, who are they playing? Like who are they going to meet in the postseason? And that's a weird spot to be in, especially because everything's still stupid close. So that's still, any kind of weird thing can happen. And it's okay to believe that this team can go to the playoffs, though. It's completely okay to believe that.
It's a different mentality right now, I think, for everybody around, not just the fans, the media, everybody. We're waiting for that X to go next to their name, but we also, don't want to have the balloon be popped either, right? So you're cautiously just optimistic. You hope that the rug, as you mentioned, doesn't get pulled from under them, and anything can happen because it's still so close. But whatever happens down the stretch, I think, it's been a positive season, coming out of the hopefully the Olympic break for that rest of that playoff push, and so many games in a short amount of time. 7-2-1 in their last 10, 3-game winning streak. It's been really, positive for the Sabres right now. And again, they haven't really shown anything that makes you believe that this 18-wheeler is going to fall off the cliff anytime soon. And, even if they do lose a game or two here, it seems like Lindy Ruff's got this team, with the right mentality of how they need to go in and night out and bounce back, as you mentioned, from those few losses that they had in this last little stretch here. Looking at the next stretch of games here, Joe, I mean, we got the Leafs coming up on Tuesday. That's always a big game, regardless where they are in the standings. But this one might be one of the more meaningful ones as far as standing wise in the last decade. Where the Leafs are, where the Sabres are right now. It's they got Montreal coming back into Buffalo. You got Florida, Tampa, like 3 straight. 4 of the next 5 are against divisional opponents here. So this is a huge stretch for the Sabres, right before they hit this Olympic break.
Yeah, and none of these games are easy. None of these are easy games. I mean, they're never gonna. I mean, you can make the argument no game in the NHL is easy, but there's not one where you're like, that one, they should win that one. Because there's always a game or two where you're like, that one should be a W. But you play in Toronto. I mean, who knows what kind of Leafs team you're going to see? LA's nasty. LA plays it tight, and I know they're kind of up and down. They're still a pretty wicked team there, and that's a team that's like a trade or two away from being like, oh, okay, they're getting actually serious here. Montreal, they've been on like an NFL schedule with here this month, once a week, every week, which is just it's the goofiest quirk in the schedule I think I've seen in a long time. But yeah, they kind of bookend the Olympic break with going to Florida, and those are the actual like big tests, because Florida's got Matthew Tkachuk back. Brad Marchand just came back. They just got to win in Minnesota the other night. Tampa Bay has been unbelievable. Like Tampa Bay's like scooted ahead in the standings, and like all while Buffalo was winning 10 in a row, Tampa was like, oh, we won 11 in a row. Like, cool. You gained 0 ground on the Lightning at all. Like not 1 point you gained on them at all. So they, it's a really good team. Pittsburgh is a playoff team right now. Like they're second in the Metropolitan, which is crazy. New Jersey, I get it. Like New Jersey's kind of down, but also they still have Jack Hughes. They still got some players. They can still do some damage. And then yeah, you go back to Florida, and then you come back home, and it's Vegas. You got Vegas coming here after the Olympic break, man. Come on. Like
the hero's return for Jack Eichel.
well,
maybe with a gold medal, maybe they'll cheer him. If the U.S. won a gold medal, maybe they give Jack Eichel a small golf clap.
I don't know if that
maybe not.
I don't know if that would happen. I'd still be more concerned about Leafs fans buying tickets to boo Mitch Marner some more. But
there you go. Yeah,
maybe that'll happen. I don't know. But I mean, like that's like what, the next 10 games? Jeez, like come on, that's tough. That's tough. When arguably the easy game is New Jersey or Pittsburgh, that's not easy. That is not an easy stretch of games.
And the last thing I want to end off with, Joe, is Tage Thompson, because obviously he's picked up his game to a elite level. Going to be an Olympian for Team USA. Is a guy 53 points in 51 games, 27 goals. He's been a menace as of late. If you go look at the box score of his last 5 or 10 games, it's been pretty out of this world for the leader of this forward group here. And to me, like, obviously, whatever Tage, however far he takes this team, they're going to go with the guys like him and Darlene. Like they're just the catalyst, the leaders, and his elevated play, has really, helped this team get to where they are right now.
Yeah, and it's his confidence and his kind of stoicism and like the nasty competitive streak we've seen out of him too, in some of these games where I think it was a game in Nashville where Ozzy Weissblatt lays a kind of a nasty hit on him in the corner, and Thompson, comes down later and scores, and he's just barking at Weisblatt the whole time. And you're like, oh, Tage's mean streak is out there. Okay. All right, man. Cool. That kind of thing is always kind of fun to see from him, because Tage plays it really cool. Like he's just very calm and level-headed, and just keeps it as even keeled as possible when he's on and off the ice. And when you see him getting pumped up and you see him doing that kind of stuff on the ice, you're like, all right, maybe there is another step for him on the ice where, he's already been great offensively. And then you're like, okay, if there's the nasty competitive edge part of his game that's going to come out during this run towards a possible playoff spot, boy, oh boy, that's going to be fun to watch, because he is dynamic. I mean, just the way he's been everywhere all over the ice. It's not just him camping out in the circle, trying to tee him up and trying to dangle guys out of their boots. He's been doing all kinds of work in the offensive zone. It's been awesome to watch.
15 points in his last 10 games and points in 10 of his last 12 games. So just insane stuff from Tage Thompson, and including that 5-point performance against Montreal, 3 goals, 2 assists, just been a menace, and a guy that, Buffalo expects to get back to 100% after he was, played through some injuries last season. It looks like that wrist is 100%, thankfully, for Sabres fans. So with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. But Joe, appreciate you coming on. I know we both probably got to go shovel again by the time this episode comes out. So stay warm out there, and look forward to some updates from you at practice this week. And I know, Josh Norris is still week to week right now. And, it's a shame because he's been playing so well when he's in the lineup, but appreciate all the work that you do, and look forward to updates coming this week. It's another important stretch for Buffalo.
Yeah, it's going to be a big run going towards the Olympic break here, and see if they can get things wrapped up and send those guys off to Italy for, I don't know, maybe we'll see Tage in a gold medal game. Maybe we'll see Luukkonen in a gold medal game. Maybe Donnelly. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be fun though.
Yeah, hopefully they get the locker rooms figured out. That's a story for another day. But that's going to wrap it up for another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that tuned in on your video version on YouTube, and those who listen to your favorite on-demand audio podcast platform. Again, make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics to update with all of our Sabres coverage and our fan polls for our shows, and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for our short reels and content. For Joe Yerdon of Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report, my name is Brandon Caputo, and that's going to be it for another episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. We'll talk to you again very soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.